Hey, this is the outline for Chapter 4, Segment 4. We're going to get started with hallucinogens. The term hallucinogens is a misnomer because hallucinations have to take place in the absence of sensory stimulation to actually be considered a hallucination. Whereas hallucinogens just alter or distort existing perception. And they are predominantly visual. LSD is a type of hallucinogen. It was created by Albert Hofmann. Hallucinogens are diverse in neural actions. Many affect the acetylcholine system. Mescaline, which is from peyote, affects noradrenergic and serotonergic systems. Many act as serotonin receptor agonists. Ketamine, which is commonly used as a medicine, affects prefrontal cortex. And it is considered dissociative because it gives feelings of depersonalization and loss of reality. MDMA is another type of hallucinogen, also known as ecstasy. It causes a greater release of serotonin, stimulation of 5-HT2A receptors, and changes levels of dopamine and peptide hormones. Chronic use of ecstasy in lab animals alters the structure and function of serotonergic neurons. Memory disturbances and depression and can be used to treat PTSD. Various models are proposed for substance. There were various models proposed for substance abuse and addiction. It varies in emphasis beyond physiological, behavioral, and environmental factors. Some of these factors stem from social forces, while others are from scientific observations and theories. Any given drug can have multiple effects. The comprehensive theory of drug abuse and addiction must account for dependence across this huge range of addictive compounds and effects. There are several perspectives to understand drug abuse. Moral model, disease model, physical dependence model, positive reward model, and a factor that people differ in vulnerability to drug use, and the fact that there are multiple ways to treat drug abuse and addiction. So with the moral model, typically the abuser is blamed, that the fact that they should be punished for doing drugs. The disease model, it believes that drug addicts require medical treatment rather than moral exhortation or punishment. Dependence is a more severe disorder than drug abuse, it is believed. And then with the physical dependence model, which is also known as the withdrawal avoidance model, people keep taking drugs in order to avoid withdrawal. Withdrawal symptoms are the opposite to the effects produced by the drugs. For example, if you're withdrawing from heroin, the person might feel very fidgety and very hyper wired. Then the positive reward model is when people get started with drug abuse because the drug provided powerful reinforcement. Many drugs cause the release of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens. And also endocannabinoid actions within the reward circuitry may also contribute to drug abuse. User learns to associate the drug-talking behavior with that pleasure and then begins taking more and more drugs in order to feel more of that pleasure. And because they keep taking these drugs, other pleasures from food, money, sex actually start to fade. Cocaine produces long-lasting changes in dopaminergic circuitry and neurotransmitter systems in the nucleus accumbens. And another thing that people found out through the positive reward model is that people who suffer damage to insula could quit smoking. And this shows that there might be connections between the VTA and insula that will normally interact to mediate addiction. Another model is that people differ in their vulnerability to drug abuse. Individual and environmental factors. There are many individual and environmental factors that account for different susceptibilities, and these fall into multiple factors: biological, family situation, personal characteristics, environmental factors. Environmental stimuli can become strongly associated with in which the drugs can become strongly associated with subjective effects of abused substances. Cue-induced drug abuse, which is when emotional aspects of cue-induced drug abuse may be controlled by the central nucleus of the amygdala. Drug abuse and dependence can be prevented or treated in multiple ways. There's several categories for medical strategies. One is lessening the discomfort of withdrawal with drugs that suppress central adrenergic activity. Another method is to provide alternatives to the addictive drug or agonist or partial agonist analogs of the addictive drug. Also, someone can take this approach by directly blocking the actions of the addictive drug by using receptor antagonists. And this prevents the drugs from interacting with its receptors. They can also alter the metabolism of the abused drug. And finally, blocking the brain's reward system would also help to prevent drug abuse, although it could cause people to suffer from a disorder in which they can't feel any pleasure at all. Another method that researchers are taking is to bend the immune system to produce selective antibodies that seek out and destroy targeted substances. In this case, they use vaccines against drugs like cocaine, heroin, and nicotine. But drug molecules are small, so it's very hard for antibodies to find them. So what they do is they conjugate the molecules of the drug with molecules of a larger carrier protein so that and teach the antibodies to locate the combination.